Hi, it's Kirby. It's April 12th, 2025. And the question today is, are the men who surround Leslie Wexner indeed too big to fail? And by the time I am done bringing you this update on several cases that I thought were going to get justice, meaning the victims and those of us who have been following these stories very carefully, you will probably say that, well, no, if you are connected to Wexner in any way, shape, or form, you get a get out of jail card free, which then begs the question, what's going to happen in the Glenn situation? Okay, so Mike Jeffries, who was the CEO of the Wexner-owned Abercrombie and Fitch, has been declared mentally unfit to stand trial on charges related to an alleged international transportation operation. So this is a court filing that was made public on Thursday. He is now 80. He was arrested in October of 2024. He was charged with organizing S parties where male models were reportedly coerced, and you can fill in those blanks. In addition to the fact that they were coerced, they were actually forced to partake in the substance situation. Okay, that's another blank that I have to be careful with when speaking to you here on this platform. So apparently, Jeffrey's attorney, a man by the name of Brian Bieber, no relation to Justin, revealed that multiple medical evaluations over recent months have concluded that Jeffries is suffering from severe dementia. Gee, he was suffering from nothing during all those years, many multiple of years, because the allegations, frankly, were for a limited number of years, and also again for a very limited amount of, let's call them survivors. I'd rather call it survivors rather than victims. Um, and he claims, this attorney, on behalf of his client, Mike Jeffries. But remember, we have Wexner sitting all the way on top. Nobody touched Wexner when everyone was pointing the finger here and pointing the finger there. No, Wexner is untouchable. All right, so um, Jeffries is now allegedly suffering from severe dementia, including Alzheimer's disease and other cognitive impairments, and that the condition has deteriorated to the point that he now requires constant supervision and care, according to a psychiatrist hired by the defense. I want to stop here and remind you that during the JFK, um, the aftermath of what happened in Dealey Plaza, I have to skip around the word that begins with an A. There were some psychiatrists that were called in, such as Jolly West. So that Jolly West, as all of you know, is now basically the our understanding of MK Ultra. And suddenly we're looking at the same kind of interference, if you will, and cooperation, I would say, into making sure that Jeffries does not stand trial, does not go to jail, is not, nothing happens to him. So now he is under the supervision of a psychiatrist. And then an expert, so-called expert, put forth by the prosecution, guess what? They reached a similar conclusion, stating that Jeffrey's condition is almost certain to deteriorate. So this is what I saw when I was following Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, that neither the defense nor the prosecution were actually asking questions that could have been answered by even the four women that were called in to be the witnesses, I mean, they were not part of, they were just there to be a witness and to share their experience. But even then, they didn't, or were not questioned as to who they were transportation to, although they had been, like, with the exception, I believe, of one. And but none of that information came out. So here we have the same thing going on. We have the prosecution and the defense agreeing, oh, you know what? He can't, he cannot. His mind is gone. So, however, in light of these conclusions, Jeffries' legal team has requested from the court, hey, let's put him into the hospital for 4 months. So now they're delaying whatever happened, but we can see the writing on the wall. Put him in the hospital for 4 months to assess whether he may eventually be deemed competent to participate in legal proceedings. I think we can see that that's going to result in, oh no, he's just gone, completely gone. Okay. And the prosecutors, who I just shared with you, they agree. They haven't opposed the motion. And this happened just this Thursday, April the 10th. A spokesperson that was reached from, I believe, the New York Post for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York, which is overseeing the case, declined to comment. And then Jeffries, he ran Abercrombie from 1992 until 2014. And he was indicted this past fall on federal charges of transportation and interstate PROSTITUITION. And the indictment alleges that Jeffries, his partner Matthew Smith, and by the way, I do have a series, it is on my Substack, and Smith happens to be a Rothschild, and nobody has been able to figure that one out. But I am telling you here, I think it's breaking news. However, he is a Rothschild. And then the associate James Jacobson, who I think I shared on this platform, it's a very weird looking man. He wears a wooden nose, literally a wooden nose, because he's had so many nose surgeries that he's destroyed his nose. All of these men have been plastic surgery enthusiasts, let's just say. I mean, the amount of the insanity thing would have been even better because these men are just insane. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Um, But these three men apparently orchestrated an international transportation between, and this is the point that I was sort of making earlier. They're only like looking between, let's say, 2008 and 2015, whereas we have allegations going back many decades, commencing, frankly, in 1992. All right, and the three are accused of luring young men with promises of modeling opportunities. Of course, that's the carrot on a stick. That's what gets people in the door. And then once they were lured in with these modeling opportunities, coercing them into attending S events. We can only imagine what those S events were, right? Under false pretense, and subjecting them to consensual, I should say, situations. And so they were again reportedly given substances, forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. I mean, if you go to a party and you're forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement, I think it's safe to say you should leave. Really. If you or anyone you know goes to a party and the first thing you have to do is sign a non-disclosure agreement, leave, because it's not going to be good for you. You may not even make it out in one piece, literally, or alive. And then they also had their personal belongings confiscated during these events. Now, I want to share with you that when I have been I have an ongoing series on Wexner. It's called Deconstructing Wexner. And one of the things I learned is that that's the way he operated, the limited, when it was called limited, L Brands, Victoria's Secret, and all of that. And so in an article where I was doing some research on Wexner's mother, Bella, who's no longer with us, by the way. She died some time ago. She would make sure that the women who were going into the factory, that their bags were removed from them. Like they trusted no one. But apparently, all of their personal belongings were confiscated during these events. We heard that also with the JE situation. Their passports would be taken away, their everything would be taken away. So like you're virtually a prisoner. So again, let's look at this stuff. If ever any of you or anyone that you know was in a situation like this, just say, hey, you know what? Stop. I'm out of here. And then the alleged activities took place in New York, the Hamptons, and international destinations. And of course, when they were before the judge, all of three uh, pled not guilty. Now, one of the attorneys that represented the JE survivors is Brad Edwards, who is again involved in this matter, which okay, I think I'm gonna just remain mum on that. Um, he responded by saying that his clients are going to move forward with their case, irrespective of the court ruling. And I mean, I've seen a lot of comments by Edwards. I personally do not trust Edwards because he handed Virginia Giuffre straight to David Boies and J. Stanley Pottinger. Uh, And I think if you've been listening to my coverage or reading my coverage of this for all of the years that I've been covering it, then you know where I stand with boys. So I do not, this comment of because he goes on to say, Edwards, regardless, he cannot and will not avoid liability in our civil class action lawsuit. Yeah, okay. And then there are other lawsuits that are not part of the initial thing. Um, and this separate lawsuit was filed by two male models, claiming that they were promised high-paying jobs with Abercrombie, only to be, oh my God, only to be provided substances R-worded and transportation by Jeffries and his friends. And the two men, whose identities are not being revealed, good for them, because think about the trolling that Virginia has had, right? So, and that's why people don't come forward. You have all of these paid trolls. But anyway, they allege that they were required to remove all any hair from all parts of their person, endure painful injections to certain areas beneath your waist, and which were for the purpose of prolonging a certain situation that happens with the male anatomy during the alleged ABUSE. Okay. So according to the civil complaint, a Jeffries associate named James Jacobson recruited the men around 2010 and 2011 and coerced them into private meetings under the pretense of vetting them for, guess what? Modeling opportunities. All right, it's called GRAPE. Okay. One of the men was a teenager at the time, and both were S8 by Jacobson, who, by the way, he tried people out. Yeah, he tried them out to see if they were worthy of being promoted into the Jeffries and his partner, okay? Uh, and moved around in the larger transportation situation. And again, this for these two guys, the SA happened in properties in Manhattan, in the Hamptons, internationally, and their attorney is Robert George's. Now, I am just really incensed, I think is the right word, with this update because Jeffries was fine up until the day that he was arrested. I mean, there are pictures of him. He looks just fine. He's not walking around like I mean, like an old man that can't think or anything. But oh, just immediately after, he just pulled one of these. Remember when Harvey Weinstein was arrested and he started to use the walker, and he looked horrible. And I will be doing a separate podcast, by the way, on what's going on with Harvey Weinstein and what's going on with the attempt to get him out of jail, because there is some underhanded stuff that is happening that is there there are certain characters that are working to unravel and pull back everything that happened in the post Me Too era. Remember, Bill Cosby walked, and now they're trying to get everything removed. Again, I'm going to be doing a separate podcast on this, everything removed from Harvey Weinstein. We know that once that happens, guess who's next? Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay. Well, remember, Henry Jarecki, Dr. Henry Jarecki, is a German trained physician. He is a psychiatrist, MK Ultra trained. Yes, MK Ultra trained, German born, MK Ultra trained. He's, I think, 90 something. A woman had brought a lawsuit against him because he worked in tandem with JE, and whenever one of the girls had an issue, he would send them directly to Henry Jarecki. And in this one instance, the girl was, she's originally, I don't know that anybody reported it other than me. She's originally from France, brought here from France. Remember, JE had a very large apartment in France. And when he, meaning JE, sent her to Jarecki, Jarecki's like, well, no, you're going to stay with me. You're going to just be for my pleasure. And if that's not to your liking, well, then I'm going to send you back to JE, where you're going to have to be of service to a bunch of 80-year-olds. But with me, so like, and of course, they have control over her because the whole thing in the world of transportation and in this world where it's, again, it's connected to Intel. It's not just like it's a mom and pop shop. No, this is a larger thing that is connected by Intel. People think, oh, like you could just leave. Well, it's not that simple. And I think I've tried to make this clear, but if I need to do another podcast on that, let me know in the comment section below. So I've been following this because, again, I've been working on a series about this because there are a lot of connections here to a lot of weird things and to the music industry. And what happened was that about a week ago, the woman who brought the lawsuit against him dropped it. When I read that a week ago, I thought to myself, okay, that is what the media is reporting. I wonder if there was a quiet settlement and the public is being told that this situation has just been dropped. That happens sometimes. And I'm hoping that that is what happened. The other thing could be that she became afraid. I mean, or the other thing could be she does live in France, and this lawsuit is happening in New York. And so did something happen to maybe scare her? I mean, I would think yes, especially in light of what happened to Virginia. Well, I'm getting to the Virginia situation now. In 2010, when Virginia began her journey, because she was contacted by the FBI, who were investigating some lawsuits, and This happened, I believe, either concurrent with the time that she had sued Gillen and or related to some of the allegations she made against not only Wexner, but Dershowitz as well. She was scheduled to appear somewhere and she had to say, hey, I can't go. And the reason that she had to say, hey, I can't go is because of what I disclosed on Sean Atwood's show almost 2 weeks ago now. And that is that Virginia has been a victim of, let's say, being DV. So, well, so in that case, she had too many bruises on her that she did not want to appear publicly. And she had something scheduled. She was working with ABC on a certain project. In fact, it was ABC who did a podcast with her. And she was clear with them. And, and not just that, it came out in some of the um, court transcripts as well, or the court transcripts or depositions or something like that. And so that the fact that this accident, which appears to have made whatever injuries she had previous, and a lot of injuries, by the way, are internal and you can't see them, and some injuries are external, and we saw some of those injuries in the photograph that the whole world is has seen at this point. However, it's really like it's really a shame that Virginia has had to deal with not only the fact that she had a very rough childhood, not only that she was then caught up with another transportation person like Ron Eppinger, and then ends up with J.E. Engelin, and then ends up with a man who abuses her, but she's got children, so she tolerates this abuse. It just seems like she's tolerated so much. And then to hear all of the mainstream begin to kind of chirp and say, well, this is destroyed her credibility. Why? Because she's been strong in the face of adversity, because she has wanted to remain a mother to her three children and has stayed in a situation. She's not the only one. She's not the only one. I will say that, frankly, I want to thank those of you who have stood by her side and have fought back against her detractors. And by the way, detractors are paid. They're paid for. And sometimes you have what are called there's something in the intelligence language. It's like, and it's something almost like a stupid thing, and kind of it's in reference to people who don't know any better, jumping the bandwagon and echoing, oh yeah, she's this, she's that, she's this, and it's like, well, you're falling in line and step with a paid smear campaign. So for those of you who are smart enough not to fall into that, and for I was cringe, I was just cringing at some of the stuff I was listening, indie podcasters. I'd have to just turn it off because I thought either you're doing clickbait, which I think that's what it is, clickbait stuff to get, you know, to get people to just flock to your channel under false pretense. Oh, Virginia is unalived. Oh, Virginia is. I mean, the stuff I was listening to was nauseating. Oh, I don't believe this is her. Oh, look at this line. It's like there are no straight line. Like I was hearing so much nonsense that I just was like just completely turned off to some people that initially I would have been more receptive to, but now I'm like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Everyone should have been lockstep as far as those of us who are indie media, I'm indie media, right? In protecting Virginia and understanding that she probably, very likely, was too embarrassed about the fact that she is a DV victim, in addition to having been victimized by these other people. And it needed time to gather her thoughts after recovering or trying to recover from whatever the bruising was from. And very likely it could have been from something that allegedly her former husband did, because Virginia is now, I believe she's divorced. That's why she's using the name Roberts. And so, my point here being that those of us who are fighting against the abuse of power, against those of us who are not in a position of, let's say, the power of the elite have power, and they take advantage of it. And so we have been working, you guys who have been around for a long time, me, myself, and other people, working to expose these abuses and working to empower survivors to, it's not your fault. Don't feel any guilt. Don't feel the shame, because it's not yours to carry. It belongs to the person who abused you. It's not your shame. But it takes a long time, and shame on those of you who, in fact, victim blamed Virginia, who really is a person to be admired. Now, I wish Virginia a speedy recovery, but what I want to say and I want to add here is, if you find yourself in a position where you too are a victim and are suffering at the hands of an abusive spouse and or partner, please leave. Know, however, that it does, for at the period that you are trying to leave, that's when the violence escalates. That, as bad as it is, that's when the violence escalates. So plan your departure carefully. I'll probably upload something to my Patreon to help those of you who need to leave an abusive relationship plan properly, because you can't do it necessarily in a manner where you're not going to get bashed again, and possibly even, having an incident that ends your life. I mean, we see this stuff in the news all the time. But there's no reason why anyone should be in an abusive relationship. And I believe, as I told Sean about 2 weeks ago when I first mentioned the situation with Virginia, this was before it became public, because I had learned about it in 2019, that the media was going to write a story and then they decided not to. It's I'm happy for her that she finally was able to detach herself from this. However, what we now see is that her husband has her in court, because according to her brother Sky, uh, instead of, let's say, Virginia being able to put something into the court system to ensure that certain things didn't happen, it was her ex-husband who did that. So these entanglements, especially when there are children involved, become very sticky. And I think we have to still offer Virginia our support. And again, one of you said it very well when you said, no matter what your religion is, pray for her. Whatever your religion, whatever it is, throw, your good vibes, your well wishes to Virginia during this very difficult time where she has faced the backlash from people who didn't know what they were talking about, and from mainstream and others who seem to hell bent on trying to protect Prince Andrew. That said, I want to thank you for joining me here for this update. I'm very curious to hear your feedback. And I wish you guys a nice Saturday. Okay, talk soon. Bye.